Don and Kevin had been working for the same salvaging company for many years. They were experienced, reliable, and had seen plenty of unusual jobs, but the task they were about to face was unlike anything they had encountered before. This time, they were called out to assist with the salvaging of a dried-up submarine that had been stuck for decades. Adding to the challenge, they were also responsible for training a new employee named Carl. When the trio arrived at the site, the other workers were already busy preparing their equipment and securing the area. The sight of the submarine made their eyes widen in surprise. It was far larger and more imposing than they had expected. Despite their years of experience, none of them could have predicted what awaited them inside. Before anyone could enter the submarine, the workers had to make several important preparations. They measured the exterior carefully and searched for any available schematics to understand the vessel's structure better. Only after gathering all the necessary information were they ready to open the hatch. The heavy metal door creaked loudly as it was forced open, and Don was the first to step inside with his foot cautiously placed on the floor of the submarine. However, just as they were about to proceed, the calm was broken by the sound of numerous vehicles approaching rapidly. Soon, multiple black SUVs with tinted windows pulled up beside the submarine. The cars ignored the warning signs and barricades the crew had put in place around the salvage site. Don, Kevin, and Carl looked at each other in confusion, wondering who these people could be and why they were showing up uninvited. Their questions were answered when dozens of men dressed in suits poured out of the vehicles and began surrounding the submarine. The atmosphere became tense as the suited men began shouting and making aggressive gestures. One man climbed onto a nearby platform and started yelling at the workers below. The trio looked up, confused about what the man wanted. They hesitated, but curiosity pushed them to approach the group. As they got closer, the man's tone became more threatening. He shouted, "Leave now and hurry up, or we will use force." Before they could react, the man grabbed a nearby worker and started pushing him violently. Don, Kevin, and Carl quickly moved out of harm's way, their hearts racing with shock. More black SUVs continued to arrive, making it clear that this was no ordinary intervention. Kevin spotted something that made his blood run cold in him. Of the men stepping out of a car wore a vest emblazoned with the letters FBI. The realization that a government agency was involved left the trio stunned. They whispered to each other nervously, wondering what the FBI could possibly want with an old, abandoned submarine. The workers were left standing with nothing to do but watch as the government agents took control of the site. With their work abruptly halted, Don, Kevin, and Carl spent the day at a nearby restaurant, trying to make sense of the unexpected turn of events. As the evening wore on, most of their colleagues had gone home, but the three friends remained, feeling that something strange was unfolding. Carl, the newest member of their team, spoke up with determination. "Something weird is going on here." Don and Kevin nodded silently in agreement. They all shared the same question. What could they do about it? After hours of discussion and careful thought, they made a decision. They would try to sneak back to the submarine at night and find out what was really going on inside. When they left the restaurant, it was already dark. The moon was low, casting long shadows that they used to their advantage as they quietly approached the dock where the submarine was kept. Their hearts pounded as they saw armed guards patrolling the area, making the mission even more dangerous than they had imagined. "How do we get past those guards?" Don whispered nervously, glancing at the men with guns. Carl suddenly smiled and whispered, "When you hear my signal, climb up as fast as you can." Don and Kevin looked at each other, confused but trusted Carl's plan. Without another word, Carl disappeared into the darkness and moved like a shadow toward a row of parked cars. Moments later, a loud car alarm shattered the silence as Carl slammed down on the hood of one of the vehicles. The guards immediately turned their attention to the noise and rushed toward the cars. With the guards distracted, Don and Kevin dashed toward the submarine. Their footsteps were muffled by the blaring alarm. They climbed the ladder leading to the hatch and slipped inside before the guards could return. The door closed silently behind them, and they paused to catch their breath. The darkness inside the submarine was thick, and every sound echoed eerily through the narrow corridors. As they carefully explored the first compartment, Their eyes scanned every corner. At first, there was nothing unusual, just old machinery and rusted pipe. But as they moved through the vessel's compartments, they noticed something strange. Modern food containers scattered among the aged surroundings. The contrast was stark, and Kevin quietly wondered why fresh food would be inside such an ancient, decaying submarine. The implication was clear someone had been there recently. Unease grew among the trio. The presence of fresh supplies suggested the submarine was still in use, or at least visited regularly, but for what purpose? They silently questioned if the FBI's presence was simply to protect the historical value of the vessel, or if something more sinister was at play. Don, growing tired and uneasy, finally said, "Let's just go home." Kevin and Carl reluctantly agreed. As Don and Kevin walked ahead toward the hatch, Carl trailed behind, trying to catch up. Suddenly, Carl tripped over a metal rod protruding from the floor. Instinctively, he reached out to steady himself and accidentally leaned on a nearby desk. To their astonishment, a hidden door creaked open slowly behind him. Carl called out excitedly, "Guys, come here, you won't believe this!" Don and Kevin rushed back to Carl's side. The hidden passage led to a room that was unlike anything else in the submarine. The floor was spotless, the walls bare and pristine, and in the center stood a small radio on a simple table. The radio looked oddly modern compared to the submarine's aged surrounding. They gathered around it, and Kevin switched it on. The radio emitted static at first, but then a voice came through. Kevin's expression changed instantly. "I know that voice," he whispered. The others listened closely as the voice reported, "The perimeter is secure, boss. No one in or out. Civilians are clueless." The trio exchanged alarmed glances. The voice was one of the guards stationed outside. This was no ordinary salvage operation. They had unwittingly stumbled into something much bigger and far more dangerous than they imagined. Carl noticed another door in the room and gestured for his friends to follow him. Together, he and Kevin struggled to open the heavy metal door. When it finally swung open, they were speechless. The room beyond was filled with high-tech equipment, monitors lining the walls, and an atmosphere that was entirely out of place inside a dilapidated submarine. As they looked around in disbelief, one of the screens flickered to life, showing a live feed of the dock outside. More screens activated one by one, displaying streets, homes, and even private bedrooms. The footage was invasive and unsettling. Carl said quietly, "This doesn't feel right," and the others silently agreed. They began taking photos and videos to document what they had found. While Don and Kevin focused on the monitors, Carl noticed a simple file folder sitting on the table. It seemed out of place among the advanced equipment. He grabbed it and called his friends over. Flipping through the folder, they found detailed personal information about various individuals, their ages, heights, and other sensitive data. Without hesitation, Carl tucked the folder under his arm. As they debated what to do next, Don accidentally pressed a button on the control panel. Immediately, a blaring alarm sounded, and red lights flashed throughout the room. Their worst fears were confirmed when a guard's voice crackled over the radio, "They've been discovered! Move in! Follow me!" Don shouted as the three of them grabbed the folder and the radio and sprinted down the winding corridor. The submarine's layout felt like a maze, twisting and turning as they fled. Eventually, they recognized their way back to the first compartment, nearing the hatch. With the radio silent and no way to know if it was safe, they took a deep breath and climbed the ladder, emerging onto the dock just as they heard voices again behind them. Two figures slipped inside the submarine, just as Don, Kevin, and Carl disappeared into the night. They hurried to their car, parked at a safe distance, and drove straight to their company's office. Though they were safe for the moment, the gravity of what they had uncovered weighed heavily on their minds. Kevin slowly opened the folder again, feeling uneasy. "What do we do now?" he asked. Carl smiled enigmatically and said, "You have nothing to worry about." The tone of his voice made Don and Kevin tense. They barely knew Carl. Could they trust him? Carl then revealed the truth. He was a CIA agent. His mission had been to infiltrate and uncover the activities inside the submarine. Everything had gone according to plan until the situation escalated with the arrival of the armed men pretending to be FBI agents. Carl reassured them, "You're safe with me." He explained that the CIA had been monitoring the organization using the submarine for some time, but had not fully understood its purpose until now. When they learned that the vessel had surfaced, Carl posed as a salvage worker to get close. His knowledge and quick thinking from setting off the car alarm to discovering the hidden door now made perfect sense. Don and Kevin exchanged nervous laughs. "So, what have we gotten ourselves into?" Kevin finally asked. Carl revealed the chilling truth. The men posing as FBI agents were actually part of a dangerous hitman network. They used the fake FBI guys to keep others away and hide their illegal operation. Carl spread the folder's contents across the table. "These profiles are the people they are targeting," he said. Suddenly, Kevin froze. Among the photos was a picture of Carl himself. This meant the organization knew Carl was close to exposing the man that Don and Kevin might also be in danger. "We need to act fast," Carl said urgently. There was no time to waste. Carl took charge, making urgent calls as they drove back toward the submarine. Overhead, helicopters roared, and real FBI black SUVs sped past them. Carl confirmed, "Those are the real FBI." At the dock, federal agents swarmed the area and began their operation. Carl led the team as they re-entered the submarine and quickly located and arrested the imposters. Over the following months, the CIA and FBI worked together to dismantle the entire criminal network. Every lead was pursued, and every member was brought to justice. Don and Kevin, who had accidentally uncovered the conspiracy, were hailed as heroes in the media. Carl, true to his covert role, remained behind the scenes. Their lives changed forever. When the submarine was officially donated to a local museum, Don and Kevin were invited to open the exhibit. They accepted proudly, standing beside the historic vessel as visitors swarmed them with questions. Late one afternoon, a filmmaker approached them with a proposal for a documentary. Don and Kevin exchanged knowing smiles. They were finally ready to tell their incredible story to the world.